You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, you are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. And over the weekend, Canada tested themselves against two top 10 sides in the world, against the Dutch and the French. And it was a challenge for our boys in red, although for one of the games they did in fact wear those beautiful white kits. But we have played our final games before the Copa America against those two sides, so let's talk about it. Looking at our game against the Netherlands, first let's talk about what happened. I've seen a lot of people, mainly our head coach and some bigger reporters, say that 4-0 wasn't fully indicative of the scoreline, implying that Canada maybe deserved more. I would disagree. I thought we just about held our own in the first half. We looked pretty good. Not anything super great, but pretty good. You could tell that the boys are still getting used to new tactics and whatnot, getting to play with each other again. It's been a bit since our last break. But yeah, I would disagree. I thought the second 45, it was not good. We were abysmal. Let's be honest. The boys looked out of ideas, confused, and lost. Marsch's choices felt like anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I do want to preface this with, we need this. We need to face the best competition in the world so that we can get better and test ourselves and see where we stack up. I did see a tweet. I can't remember who tweeted it. I couldn't find it before I came on to record this. I tried my best, but I couldn't find it. But essentially it was saying we can't just beat teams that are far, far lower than us in the FIFA rankings every time we have an international break. We'll never get better. And I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. This was a great litmus test to see where we are against top sides, both against the Dutch and against the French. Now, what do we do with this is important because we can't go, well, I didn't really like losing to the Dutch, so let's go back to playing the teams we know we'll beat. And we can't just roll over every time someone superior beats us with ease and go, well, that's what they expect, you know? We have to take these lessons, learn from them, and improve. So close the gap and against these bigger nations. I still love this team and love these players. This is our golden generation, absolutely no doubt about it. And we need them to play like that. We need them to play like they are the golden generation against bigger teams and show that we belong and we should be playing them. With all this being said, I'm going to move into some pros and cons from this game and break down some of our players. So pros, we got to start off with the positive because despite losing 4-0, there were still some positives. As was already discussed, the fact that we were playing a team like the Netherlands is great. To be the best, you do have to beat the best. And then to know we stack up against these giants, how well we stack up against these giants, it is good. It is good, despite, no one likes losing, but, growing pains. And in the first half, I think we did look like we could hang in there for a little bit, for a majority of it, honestly. And one of our best chances of the game came towards the end of the half. Honestly, really our only, I would say, real clear-cut chance of the game. Where Kyle Larin should have converted. We caught the Dutch on the counter. We were looking really good defensively and sprung a counterattack. And then the ball fell to our record goal scorer, and he couldn't convert. And in these games, those come back to bite you. Of course, we did end up losing 4-0. So, I guess maybe it would have been 4-1. I don't know. But yeah, those chances you need to convert because they do come back and bite you. And there were, of course, a couple players that stood out. Firstly, someone who I don't think was spoken about a ton during the Dutch game was Liam Miller. I don't think he set the world alight, but I do think he looked very lively and eager to create, always open for the ball and ready to take guys on, which is something that I think we need. Showing that he's not scared, which is really good considering that these guys are some of the top players in the world, and Liam Miller is trying to take them on. And I think it's just really exciting. He's one of those players that gets you off your seat. And then in the second half, Jacob Schaffelberg came on for him, and he kind of looked a lot of the same, just created chances, looked eager. I don't think Miller should have been taken off at half, but at least Schaffelberg did fill in really well. Another player I thought was looking good was Kone. We are seeing a real quality player develop in front of our eyes. Just this past week, he was linked with a move to Roma, and I pray it's true and that it happens. Kone learning under De Rossi. Yeah, please. To all of that. Yep, absolutely. We'd have our Daniele De Rossi of the North, but he looked pretty solid. I liked watching him drive at players and take guys on. My only problem was he didn't release the ball quick enough at times and would get dispossessed. But, I mean, that also comes with age and development and experience and whatnot. So, take them as they come, right? And, I mean, we'll get into it more when we talk about France, but he looked unreal against France as well. So, and then our two center backs, firstly, Derek Cornelius. He's been in and out of the national team for a little bit, but the 26-year-old has never truly gotten an opportunity, in my opinion. He plays his football with Malmo, and on the broadcast, they were saying that he was linked with European sides. I haven't seen any reports, but that'll definitely be something to look out for, because outside of the one goal where he didn't clear the ball all that great, I think he was one of our top performers. He made a great goal line clearance early in the first half. That'll probably be lost in history because of the scoreline, but he was looking very good, a calming presence in a chaotic performance. I will be interested to see how Marsch uses him going forward, and he definitely did that 13 proud that Atiba Hutchinson made so famous for so many years. And of course, his center back partner Bombito was also great, I thought. He looked same as Cornelius, really calm and assured on that ball. He didn't really put a foot wrong. He wasn't at fault for any of the goals, in my opinion. His distribution, I also thought was really good. He definitely is one for the future. This was just his fourth cap, but he already looks a mainstay under this new Marsch regime. And he currently plays with the Colorado Rapids in the MLS, and I honestly don't think he'll be there much longer. He looks like the modern-day center back, and I can see a move for him in the very near future. Between him, Kamal Miller, and Derek Cornelius, I think it'll be fun to see how Marsch handles our center back situation. And of course, finally, Dane St. Clair played a great game. Without him, I think it actually could have been a lot worse. A number of class saves at various points in the game. He looked like a man playing for that number one spot, as he most likely was. With Crepeau right on his heels, he had to be really good. He spilled one shot that led to a goal, but that's honestly it for mistakes from him, in my opinion. He didn't put much of a foot wrong, or I guess a glove wrong. Other than that, not often can you say a goalkeeper conceded 4 goals and they were probably one of your best, if not your best performers. So take a bow, Dane St. Clair. And it's, of course, not all positive because it was 4-0. So we're going to get into the cons. And yeah, there's a good few. So despite holding our own that first, it all came crumbling down in the second. 4 goals in the second half, 3 of them in a 13-minute period is not good at all. Was it a case of lack of concentration, just being outclassed, outcoached, new tactics not being drilled in yet? Yeah, I think it was honestly all of the above. We never expected to win this game, and now that's not an excuse, it's just a fact. The Netherlands have a good few world-class players. There were always going to be that chance that they were going to just straight up outclass us, and they did, but let's dive just a little bit deeper. Our subs at times made little to no sense. I like Schaffelberg, and I do like that he was brought on, but I wouldn't have brought him on for Liam Miller. Tajon Buchanan was a non-factor in that first half, and then you pulled him off 10 minutes into the second anyways. So why not just pull him off 10 minutes before, leave Miller on and put Schaffelberg in? Because you replaced Tajon with Brim in the 56th. You bring on Schaffelberg at half, and you took Miller off, who I thought was one of our better performers in that first. I don't know. Didn't make sense to me. Speaking of Brim, why do we have 3 strikers on at the same time? Laren, him, and David, when we needed guys creating chances. It's great that we had 3 guys on the field to, in theory, convert those chances, but we had few players on to create them. Zatar in for Johnson seemed like it had to be done. Johnson looked like he may have picked up a knock, so I think it may have been precautionary, and as he did play against France, it must have been precautionary. I don't know. I'm going to assume. I didn't see anything about an injury to Johnson. Like I said, he played the next game just 3 days later, so I don't know. I don't really have an issue with Zatar coming on. We didn't really have anybody to bring on. I know we could have brought on Richie, but I had no issue with Zatar coming in. And then in the 71st, we bring on Hoylett, a guy who can create chances, but at that point we're 3-0 down and being totally overrun by the Dutch. I didn't have an issue with Chouanier coming on for Eustáquio. Eustáquio was looking tired when he came off. And then in the 79th, we bring on Piet, and I've been vocal about how Piet should play more, but he's a more defensive-minded player, which is kind of confusing, as Marsch was bringing on guys like Hoylett and Chouanier, which would indicate he wants to still attack, but then 8 minutes later, you bring on a defensive-minded midfield player. It didn't make much sense, and at that point, you're either going to salvage something, bring on these attacking players, maybe a goal, maybe a comeback, although obviously it would have been a miracle. But then you also bring on a defensive-minded player, so you're trying to just keep it at 3-0. I didn't understand. I didn't really get it. It was very contradictory to the changes he was making. And like I said, I like the guys that we brought on. It just didn't make a whole ton of sense as to who we were bringing on and at what times. I just didn't get it. So what I'm getting at here is the substitutions didn't really help us, and they just looked confused. I could be the only one that thinks that, but that's just my opinion. And then let's get into some of the tactics, which didn't work in this second half. Like I said, it all came crumbling in the second, and oh wow, did it ever. We were playing super compact, which makes no sense against a team like the Netherlands. They have players like Memphis Depay, Frimpong, Van de Ven, Malen, and Bergwijn, and they didn't play but Gakpo and Dumfries. What was Marsch thinking? A compact style doesn't suit us in a game like this, in my opinion, with Netherlands playing really great and explosive wingers and fullbacks that are eager to get up the pitch. And they were exploiting us all game, but especially in that second. Johnston, who's probably our best defender, was getting absolutely cooked by Memphis and Van de Ven all game because he was so compact that these guys had all the space to run in behind him. So when Turney looks out of position and lost, and then you have Davies on the other side getting rinsed by Frimpong all afternoon. Then when he was brought off for Malen, it was his turn. We had a top 5 left back in the world look like it was Sunday League. I do think we were at our best when we were keeping a strong defensive shape and tried to catch the Dutch on the counter. And this was our first game with the new system, so obviously give it time, and I'm sure there will be tweaking going forward from Marsch. But yeah, it blew up in our face, I think. And of course, it's not all at the feet of Marsch. Our players do need to take accountability. Our players at times looked like they lacked concentration, discipline, which at this level can prove deadly, as we saw. And if you go back and watch each of the goals, a lot of them come from lack of concentration. First goal, Davies doesn't push out to shut down Frimpong. He puts in a great cross for Depay, who catches Johnston sleeping uncharacteristically. And then Johnson doesn't track him, and boom, 1-0 down. And you kind of knew from then it was just kind of a case of how many for the Dutch. And that's exactly what happened. So you get into the second goal. Davies isn't checking his surroundings and doesn't see Frimpong running in behind. Yes, to his credit, Davies nearly does catch him, and Frimpong gets lucky with the rebound, but he does turn in a great finish, in all fairness, from a really strange angle, and we go 2-0 down. Third goal, Cornelius doesn't clear his lines, and then St. Clair spills the first initial shot. Rebound from Weghorst. We go down 3. And then final goal, substitute Zatar's wayward clearance ends in a Van Dijk header, which was unchallenged by Brim, who just stood and let Van Dijk jump over him. Now, in all fairness, Brim probably wouldn't have won the header regardless, but at least put in an effort, and Zatar has to just put his foot through that and clear it. I'd rather just concede another corner if worse came to worse, you know? But looking up the pitch, even lacks of concentration there. Lairn failed to convert that golden opportunity. Our chances were few and far between, in all fairness, as we didn't make a whole ton, but you have to score a chance like that. So it's not necessarily a tactical failure, but also our players failing to hold their concentration and discipline. And like I said, you get punished at this level. But as I've been saying, you need this. In CONCACAF, when you're playing a team that is a lot lesser than the Netherlands, you're not going to get punished like this. You just won't, because they don't have the class to do it. But with the Netherlands, you will, because they're world class. They have amazing players. They will convert these chances. They'll see your weakness and exploit it. And if we want to start challenging teams like Netherlands, or even just getting better, walk before you run, I guess. Even just to get better, you have to take this on the chin, go back to the drawing board, fix some of the stuff that wasn't working, improve on the stuff that was working but needs a little bit of improvement. And I think that's what we did against France, and what we will hopefully, fingers crossed, be doing going forward. The Dutch were a proper test. In the first half, we looked like we may pass it, but then in the second, it just all went wrong. Like I said, it's a learning process. I have faith in these boys. I think we will be all right. But it's just one of those ones where you go, ouch. I'm going to preface this French segment by saying I wrote these notes right after the France game, so I was a little bit excited, so I will probably be adding as I go to this, adding on my notes, just kind of, I guess, ad-libbing, you could say. But let's get into the French game. So we just drew number 2 ranked France in the world. Huh? Is this real life? We drew France, the World Cup runner-up and Euro favorites. I have never been so happy in my life for a 0-0 draw than I am right now with this one. It feels like a historic result for our country following the Netherlands game, and it is just incredible. Let's be real. This is France. And everybody is saying, well, they didn't have Mbappe. 1, Mbappe came on for the last 20 minutes. Thank you very much. And 2, did you see their team? They don't need Mbappe to win the Euros. They could win it without him. Let's be real. They have world-class players spilling out of every end of their pitch. We drew France. I'm sorry, this is a massive, massive deal. And if you can't understand that, I don't know what to tell you. Yes, they didn't play Mbappe for the entire 90. But this is France. Crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. And the result they needed after the loss against the Netherlands. And I think this will do a world of confidence for not only the boys that played, but for the boys that could be getting the call for Copa America, for the fans, and for Jesse Marsch and his staff. I think it does a world of confidence to see that their training paid off. So I'm going to try to do the same for the France game as I did the Netherlands game, with pros and cons and player breakdowns. But spoiler alert, there wasn't great cons. I mean, now having slept on it for a day, I will probably just ad-lib some cons. I don't have any written down, but there are a couple things that come to mind. But we'll get into the pros first because we have to. Because we drew France. I'm sorry. That's exciting. So credit where it is due. I wrote in my notes for the Netherlands game, Marsch needed to tweak some of his tactics, and he did. We weren't as compact, which allowed more space in the midfield for them to move the ball around. Our defense was picking out some great passes, and there was some great interchange with some of our players. So fair play, Jesse Marsch. Now let's do it versus Argentina. So looking at some of our players, Crepeau, wow. Some top-class saves in this game, and yeah, just wow. One against the best player in the world, Mbappe, right at the death to secure the 0-0 draw. A crucial tip over the bar in the first against, I believe it was Thuram, I think. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And then a big save against Conte as well. I thought he also commanded his area really well and had some really fine distribution. Yes, he had a couple of shaky moments, but it was only a couple. And I do feel like we just saw Crepeau secure that number 1 spot for the Copa America, which I think probably was the plan to begin with. But it's been secured now, I think. And then taking a look at our defense, Alistair Johnston, not Johnson. Johnston, what a shift from him. He looked like he may have had an injury scare and needed coming off. And then also coming off of one of his worst performances, in my opinion, for the men's national team. He came up big today. Dealt with the likes of Theo Hernandez and Thuram greatly, was able to venture forward on some occasion. His distribution was on point, I thought, a very underrated aspect of his game, I think, and he hardly put a foot wrong. That's the Alistair Johnston Canada has become accustomed to, and that's how he's got to play in the Copa America. His fullback partner, Alphonso Davies, I thought had a tougher time dealing with Dembele and Griezmann. But I thought as the game kind of went on, he did make some crucial tackles and blocks. Fair play to Davies. I also thought his link up with Liam Miller and subsequent interchange of position was a highlight. And we should see more of that, I think. I think they worked really well together. But yeah, it definitely wasn't a classic Alphonso Davies performance, in my opinion. But did the job for sure. He did struggle with Dembele, so that kind of does scare me going into the Copa America. But we will see. He is a very good player, so we just have to have faith. And then looking at our 2 center backs, yet again, I thought they were just immense. Bombito helped keep that insane France front 4. Try saying that 5 times fast. Quiet with some blocks, last-minute blocks, and just like little dinks off the toe. He was doing anything he could to keep that clean sheet, and fair play to him, he most definitely did. And a man who I think has a claim for potential man of the match was Cornelius, because what a beast. That was a proper center back performance. Kept France's record goal scorer, Giroud, quiet all game, and his distribution, he looked like he was playing number 10 at times. Some of the crossfield passes, the just little touches, like, okay, who is this guy? Xabi Alonso in the midfield? Come on now. But seriously, though, I thought his distribution was amazing. He once again just didn't put a foot wrong. He looked so calm and assured, and I think he just filled you watching. That is, if you watched the game, he filled you with confidence. I was like, okay, wait, hold up. If these two are our center backs, we may have a shot here, because they don't look like they're going to do something silly to give away a goal or nothing like that. So fair play to our defense, kept the clean sheet, well deserved. Looking at our midfield, starting with Tajon Buchanan, I thought he started out really slow, and he could have potentially picked up a knock at the end there. He was limping a little bit, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and cross our fingers. Knock on wood, he'll be okay for the Copa. We'll keep an eye on that, though. But yeah, I thought he started a bit slow, really grew into the game. I thought he was up and down the pitch with some great contributions defensively in particular, some important tackles, and was never scared to take a man on and drive up the pitch. I would have liked to have seen him do it a little bit more, but once again, you are playing France, so you also have to know when to kind of pick your spot type of thing, and I think he did that pretty well. Going forward, I do want to see him kind of create more chances because I think that is a strong part of his game and something that we were lacking over these two international friendlies. And then looking down the left wing, Liam Miller, that first 15 minutes, he looked nervous and shaky, but then the boy locked in. Didn't look out of place at all. Driving against these French backline. His interchange with Davies, as I mentioned before, was causing real big problems for the French side. If you look back and go through some of our best chances, a lot of them came from Davies and Miller kind of interchanging one for the other and doing overlap, underlap, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was causing the French a lot of problems. And unlucky to see an absolute rocket hit the crossbar as well. Would have been one of the goals of my life. I would have celebrated that. I'd still be celebrating that. I'm recording this a day later. I'd be celebrating that today. But yeah, just a super proper performance from him. His future at club level is still up in the air, returning to Basel from his loan with Preston. Hopefully, he can get a great move this summer. He was really exciting. And yeah, honestly, another guy with a claim for man of the match, in my opinion. Looking at our two central midfielders, firstly, our captain today, Stefan Eustáquio, got caught ball watching a few times early on. Maybe didn't look all that great defensively a couple of times once again early on, but then he turned it on. He was everywhere on the pitch, in our 18-yard box, in France's 18-yard box. He'd be at the center circle. Some absolutely crucial blocks, especially one on, yeah, you guessed it, Kylian Mbappe. Eustáquio was phenomenal. After that little shaky period, I thought he was up for it. His passes were finding their man. Yeah, just a real captain's performance from Canada's number 7. And one of my favorite Eustáquio performances, he came up big. He came up real big against a team that was asking a lot of questions. And I will be honest, I do like Eustáquio, but there are times where I'm not fully sold on him. He has these little moments of, oh, what was he thinking? But it's performances like that where you go, okay, yeah, this guy's good. And I mean, he is playing for Porto, so obviously there is a player there. I'm not saying there's not. He is very, very good, and he showed it yesterday, and he showed it on many, many occasions for the men's national team. And yesterday was just another one of those examples. And yeah, like I said, probably one of my favorite Eustáquio performances. But there is a man who did steal the show, and it was his partner. If you weren't familiar with his game, you most definitely are now. Ismail Kone, take a bow. That was his star-making performance, if we're being honest, and has almost guaranteed him a move to a top 5 league. I know Roma is sniffing around, as I mentioned earlier on, and if I was De Rossi, I would be pushing to get this move done as soon as I possibly could before anyone else beat me to it. I've just been seeing all this Kone praise, and I love it. He definitely deserves it. Probably, definitely the man of the match. He was unreal. He went bar for bar, band for band, aura for aura, vibe for vibe with N'Golo Kanté and Camavinga, and he did not look out of place at all. Camavinga is one of the best young midfielders in Europe, and you could honestly probably just make a case as one of the best midfielders in Europe. You can take that young away if you want. And a literal living legend in N'Golo Kanté, one of the best midfielders of his generation. Let's all understand how amazing that is. Ismail Kone of Watford, 18 months ago, was playing in the MLS. No disrespect to the MLS, but I know that some people do find it to be a bit of maybe not the best league. He was playing in the MLS. And now he's going up against N'Golo Kanté and Camavinga. And he was the best one on the pitch. Ismail Kone was the best midfielder on the pitch yesterday. That's amazing. And I absolutely love to see it because I love seeing these Canadian boys show people that they can play It doesn't matter what league they're from. It doesn't matter how many caps they have. Sometimes you just got to throw them in there and they can put up a great performance. And he did. What a performance it was. He was driving through the midfield with ease, shrugging guys off, finding his man, making blocks. Yeah, Kone is him. One for the future for sure, and one for Canada's present. Crossing my fingers that Roma move happens because that would be amazing. Looking at our strikers, who I think were probably our weakest points of this match, not fully on them. Some of it is, but not fully on them. I'll get into it. First, we're going to look at Kyle Larin. In the first half, I thought we needed to pull him off, if I'm being honest. I am a Larin fan, but he just didn't look up for it. All of his touches were going wayward. It just looked lost, uninterested. But in the second half, I think he did look a lot improved. He dropped back to hold up the ball really well. And although he didn't really have many chances, he did hold up the ball really well, absorb possession, absorb pressure, would lay it off, find a man. And sometimes that's what you need, especially in a game like this, especially when it's kind of started to look like France was trying to mount something. He was very calming to see him holding up the ball. A very good aspect of his game, and one that is good to see that it is getting used. Now looking at strike partner Jonathan David, I thought he did create some chances, drop deep a few times, instead of being on the end of those chances though, which actually is something I do like from his game. The only problem is when he's dropping deep, it doesn't feel like we have another guy to be going forward because Larin is also pretty deep. So it should be one or the other drops deep. I do think something that David should have done was lay off the ball for a wide open Stefan Eustachio. He shot it right at the French defender, and I think that's one of those chances that does bite you later on. But obviously it didn't today, thankfully. Well, yesterday when they played. So thankfully it didn't. But yeah, they were definitely our most quiet of our players, and it kind of does bring me into my little ad lib of cons that I don't have notes for. Yeah, this is the Maple Footy Podcast. We go off notes. How about that? So yeah, looking at that, chances created, we didn't really create many chances, in my opinion. Liam Miller's strike off the bar is one of maybe like three I can think of. The Jonathan David one where he shot it at the defender instead of laying it off to Eustachio is another. And the only other real one was once again Jonathan David kind of crossing the ball in for Jonathan Osorio. And then Saliba cleared it. So we are going to need to create more chances and then, of course, take advantage of those chances when they come. If we want to get any type of results in the Copa America, it's great to look good defensively, which we have. But yeah, we have to take our chances, create our chances first, and then take them. But yeah, and then our strikers playing so deep. Once again, I understand for France, we kind of needed that. We needed the bodies back behind the ball. But the problem is when we go to spring the counter, these guys look so tired, like they can't run that pitch. And yeah, like I said, when David, say, pulls back to kind of almost play like a number 10 and create chances, we don't have a guy that's kind of up there to capitalize on these chances because Larin's either been pulled off at this point or is also back having been holding up the ball and everything. So we don't really have someone to convert a chance if Jonathan David happens to create one. Those are definitely two gripes. And I think, once again, some of our players need to play a whole 90 really well. Because like I said, a lot of these guys put in a shift, but some of them start out really slow. And we're lucky France didn't capitalize. Thank you to Max Crepeau, because without him, we probably would have been 2-0 down within the first 15 minutes if he didn't make two very good stops. And I think that does come from our guys just not being ready almost. But yeah, that's kind of what I would say for cons and things to kind of look at going forward. I'm sure Jesse Marsch has probably already been talking to the guys or will be during the next kind of international camp, which will be starting up really soon, right before the not Gold Cup, Copa America. So yeah, that's what I would say for cons. And I do want to talk about our subs as well for this game. I think Jesse Marsch got them spot on. Lorea in for Johnson was a smart move and was a big call. The TFC man has played only 11 minutes since TFC's home opener, but you wouldn't have known it. He was drawing fouls, sticking close to his man. It was honestly the typical Lorea performance, which was exactly what we needed. Kamal Miller checked in for Cornelius, and I'm a big Kamal Miller fan, but I was skeptical when he came in because your center back coming in cold to a very, very intense, high intensity match, and that's asking a lot of your man. But full credit to Kamal Miller, he didn't look out of place, didn't put foot wrong, slide in perfectly for Cornelius, who was looking really tired, and credit to him. I hope he had the best sleep of his life. And then Jonathan Osorio came in for Kyle Larin at the same time as Kamal coming in for Cornelius, and that looked to kind of spring a little bit of a tactic change, going from a 4-4-2 to a 4-2-3-1, with Osorio kind of playing in behind David. I think that really suited us well, and we looked even more like we could grab a winner. I think Osorio was really good, did what he needed to, popped up in some good positions, which he always does. It's kind of what Osorio does. Simple as, if you ask me. And then we made a triple change, pulling off Kone, Davies, and Buchanan for Schaffelberg, Hybert, and Tanny of Minnesota in the MLS for his first ever cap. And imagine that, getting to say that your first ever Canadian cap came against France in a historic 0-0 draw. So good for them. They didn't really have a ton of time, but they all looked hungry and helped us see out the game. They didn't put a foot wrong when they came on. They didn't give up a goal. Hybert actually made a pretty important tackle at one point, so good job, boys. But yeah, I'm just super proud of this group. It's a great way to bounce back and a great way to find some confidence going into the Copa. We looked a lot better, and we learned from our mistakes against the Dutch. We have to carry this forward, though. Do not let this go to waste. We play Argentina next, the only team ranked above France in the world. So it's huge for Canadian football. I'm so glad I got to watch it all unfold and just big up the boys in red. Now, we of course still need time. We need to see development. I think these guys playing consistently in Europe is a start. We need more of that, honestly. The CPL and MLS are both great starting points and have become viable career options for these guys. But I do think we do benefit from playing consistent European football. So I would like to see a lot more guys kind of venture out to Europe. But the problem is they also need the consistent game time, which they're more so likely to find in the MLS as opposed to in Europe. In Europe, you kind of have to more so fight for your spot. In the MLS, a lot of these guys are more so guaranteed spots, starting spots, that is. But I do think that you do see how Europe benefits these boys. A lot of our top players are playing in Europe, and even just with these friendlies alone, you saw that the European competition pushes us to be better. And yeah, it's just something that I noticed. I'm not saying screw the CPL, screw the MLS. I'm a defender of those leagues, and I think they're both extremely important to our development of these players in the game in Canada. But the European competition is stronger. But yeah, so that's a good few steps ahead for us. And obviously, we still have catching up to do to these European nations, but these are good steps forward for the program, as we proved in the first half against the Netherlands and over the 90 against France. We can hang in there with some of the best in the world, and that's, of course, football, ups and downs, but we love it all the same. I am so excited for our Copa America run, and I think it'll be super interesting. I'll be covering our entire Copa run here on the Maple Footy Podcast, whether we go just the group stages or anything past that. I'll be covering every game, And follow me on Instagram at @officialsamlittle for any and all updates. From there, you can find my other socials. I've also linked my socials to this channel, so you can find them here if that's more convenient. But yeah, let me know if you're excited about our Copa run. Thank you for listening so far. Much more coming soon. Cheers, guys.
And that was your Maple Footy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at @officialsamlittle on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.